One thing about this theater that's very interesting to me, it was built in 1928, exactly 1 year before the Great Depression. People could come here and for, in those days, a nickel, they would see a movie, they would go to a vaudeville show, they would see the Movie Tone News. All of this as a way of escaping those Depression years. And what was really fascinating about it is if those people had nowhere to stay, they could spend the night in the theater. And the theater was noted as being accepting of everyone. So all of the minorities in the community, everybody in the community viewed the Fox Theater as theirs.
My parents had their first date here in 1958. And an interesting side to that is in 1958, people of mixed race couldn't marry. And so my father was Japanese and my mother was German Jew. And so the only place that they could date was a movie theater where they could walk in individually and meet each other in the darkness where it was okay. The Black Panther Party actually used this building as an assembly area and organizing location for about 6 months. And when they were in a dispute with the landlord, attempted to burn the building down. So some of the fire damage that we dealt with as part of our restoration effort was originally from that activity and that incident that occurred in the 70s.
Irma and her husband, Mario DeLucchi, actually came in at the 11th hour and bought the Fox. It was up on the auction block, and there was a lot of fear that it would be torn down. Unfortunately, Mr. DeLucchi passed away within the year, so they weren't able to do any restoration work on it, but they did hold on to the building and then eventually sold it to the city. So I'm very grateful for them, for actually stepping in like that.
It was a derelict building that had been boarded up for 30 years. When you came into this building, it was dark, there was no electricity, the roof leaked, so there was water in the building, there was mold, lead-based paint, asbestos, mushrooms growing under the carpets. It made you quite ill, actually, when you went through the building. What really compelled us to do this project was that the uptown area where this project exists was always sort of the area of downtown that was left behind. Old Oakland developed, City Center developed, Lake Merritt developed, all of them seemed to be moving in the right direction. But the uptown area was the hole in the donut. It was really an area that was blighted and it needed development. When Jerry Brown was elected mayor, he decided that he wanted to move forward with residential development because of our terrific location. And so the impetus was, let's get the Fox Theater developed so we have a neighborhood that is a neighborhood after 5.
I wrote a concept paper of how to finance and restore the theater as a community cultural asset in '97. Because that's what this really is a cultural asset. It's something that demonstrates the health and the mental state of a community. And for Oakland to be able to have this kind of cultural offering demonstrates that we're really sane and rational people who want to make our world a better place. We were working to try to put this concept together, and Jerry Brown was having a lot of issues with the School for the Arts at the Alice Arts Center. And we then suggested, gee, maybe we could put the school in the theater.
And that was really lucky for us because at that time we were really working hard to generate interest in the project and to get the City Council interested in funding the restoration of the Fox. It really generated a lot of political will to do the project, and it made it a lot more feasible.
We've raised roughly $19 million since we closed December of 2006. So it's one of those things that it's difficult because there are 32 sources of funding.
By far the most complicated project I've ever seen. The financing is extremely complicated. There are historic and new markets tax credits. This project has 3 separate allocations of new markets tax credits in it. The major investor is Bank of America. They have an allocation of new markets tax credits. We're also working with the Charter School Development Corporation and the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Just for the new markets tax credits, there are 6 entities involved. And then on top of that, we've gotten historic grants. We've gotten redevelopment agencies put up a substantial amount of money and just all these other funding sources. We established 4 entities to develop it. Just keeping track of which one is supposed to be paying which bill is complicated. And then which funds have to go through which of these entities, and keeping the accounts straight so that we can do our taxes and everything else. It's just a very detail-oriented project.
We kept 96% of what was here. And if it wasn't here, we fixed it and put it back. In technical aspects of creating newness within an old building is the subject for lack of almost anything else.
So the building still runs on the same principles it was born on. All new equipment, however, shoved in places that you can't see. Without the plaster in here, it's Costco. That's when everybody starts going, Jim, I don't care about history, just where's the damn beer? This is all a bar pumped with beer and liquor from the basement, which we still, I don't know if it's gonna work, I hope it works. Still missing a few tiles. There's a guy in Arkansas, I think he makes them one at a time in a toaster oven. I called the guy a couple weeks ago, man, I'm gonna kill you, man, it's been 2 years. He goes, yeah, I'm making them, and you know. This is a great example of, we blew this away. Terrazzo's new, the plaster's new, the ceiling's new, the lights are new. This is new.
When you came down that staircase, nobody was in here except you, walking around with a flashlight. And a rat about the size of Jim.
I stayed during shows and listened to the riggers cursing and going, this doesn't work. And we put all that together and said, hey, let's make it the best theater we can. The stage was completely reconstructed. It was pretty much a structural mess. We actually had all the light fixtures made in Morocco. Seats are all new you'll see on the balcony, they're all new, they're wider. We've all gotten bigger. We have contemporary sound system, a video feed system, there's an IT system, there's a phone system, smoke detection, heat detection. 450 change orders later and 6,000 RFIs. We're almost done.
When I first started researching the Fox and looking for its architectural style, what I found out is that there is no one style. And I think that was typical of the movie palaces that were built during this era. They were all each trying to outdo the other. So it's very fanciful, and it has elements of lots of different styles of architecture.
Islamic architecture, Northern African, Northern Indian Brahmin architecture. It's this mixture. And I think those mixtures during the 1920s and 1930s were part of the sort of Fox approach of design.
I think the country was looking for something new and exciting, and the Moorish, Moroccan, Middle Eastern was sort of intriguing and somewhat sexy, and a lot of detail. And you see a lot of that in the old theaters where people went for entertainment. Basically, you're going to another place. You're in an environment where you're getting away, and the theater architecture and interior was part of the getting away.
One of the big surprises to us, we actually got a grant to restore the 2 figures that are on either side of the stage, quite large, and we'd always called them Buddhas, and I always saw them, described as Buddhas in print, but when we really started researching it and found the original drawings, it turns out they were actually guardians, and the original drawings showed them holding swords and looking very fierce. But when somehow by the time they were built, they ended up holding the little pots.
One of the things that was the most unique is the use of plaster in this theater. It's everywhere. And a lot of people think, for instance, the ceiling, which is a plaster ceiling, hung from thousands of wires, hung from the roof. But it's hand painted, and it's painted with a wood grain look to it. Almost everybody that looks at it says, a wood ceiling. It's not, it's plaster.
Working on this project, I've learned a lot about the architectural details, but it's mostly anecdotal, and it's mostly just viewing it and talking to people about it. There are so many little details in the theater that you don't notice the first time you're walking through, maybe not the 10th time you're walking through, but eventually you notice them. It's amazing how much detail you can't see walking through the theater that's there. And working on it gave you the chance to see it.
I think whenever you take on a project like the Fox Theater, you first have to evaluate your values and principles. You can't do a project like this that's a cultural asset and make a profit. You have to take a project like this and realize that it's going to be below market and you're going to take a loss, because that's the only way you can raise money. Further, I think we need to look at our other values and principles. Are you able to employ people that come out of the community? Are you able to make sure that the project and the jobs, as well as the contract opportunities, are a reflection of the community, not only socio-economically, but also based on gender and race?
This project is extremely successful in local hiring. It beat all the statistics of any project that's ever been done in Oakland. So local hiring, companies, minorities, it's a miraculous achievement, and we've got some incredible subcontractors that no one knew about. Turner Construction now has subs that they might not have used before, that they will use on their other jobs. We've seen guys learn and grow in their ability to paint and plaster, and it's really fascinating to watch, and it's priceless.
This building will be dedicated to the men and women who did the work to make it happen, because that's what makes these projects happen.
For me, the most special aspect of the theater is just the architecture. I mean, it's just so much detail, such a beautiful building, and preserving it and restoring it and bringing it back to its early beauty is just a fantastic opportunity.
You know, it's really kind of a moment in time that's captured in these big old movie palaces, and I'm really grateful that we still have ours.
Well, the most special aspect of this theater for me is that it was a venue where my 21-year-old daughter, who is an opera singer, debuted in this theater. And when she came out in front of 1,500 people at the grand opening, it really stunned me and a lot of people.
One of the driving forces for me was just getting it done. And there were a lot of people who were the naysayers who in so many ways actually fueled me getting up every day and wanting to make this project work. There were always those there to help dust me off and pick me up when I was discouraged. My friends at Friends of the Fox, Jim Hallbrenner, who was the architect on this project, those people really gave me the encouragement to stay focused and involved.
Well, I think that the most special thing about the project is which is hard to get over actually, is the camaraderie and the relationships you have during the project. I mean, it's just a tremendous amount of momentum and activity and relationships, sometimes good or bad, but intense. And it's, you make friends and you're in the mix of all these people all day, so it's like you're surrounded by this group of people that are working with you to accomplish things, which is pretty amazing. And then the next day, it's over.
I think the three words that I'd use to describe the Fox Theater now that it's restored is that it's a timeless, true expression.
She is awesome.
It is awesome.
Beautiful, intricate, and whimsical.
Oh boy, 3 words. Maybe miracle for Oakland, even though there's a lot of reasons why it happened and logical processes, but it's still quite an accomplishment in a downtown area that needs continued redevelopment. So it's a big deal.